I remember coming out of work one day when I was working at Quantum, and I look over and there's this nice looking BMW 325 IC. It was a convertible 325. And I thought, that's a cool car. It didn't occur to me that it was maybe reserved for those that are wealthy, so to speak. So I went down to the dealership and I found one and bought it. And then I began to notice something very odd, and that is that people would look at the car and say, wow, that's a really, really nice car. And I began to realize that, I remember saying to a few of them, it's just a hunk of metal. It's just a thing. It's not of any real value, but people's admiration was drawn out to this thing. And I remember just being rather puzzled. Like, when I bought that thing, was I really thinking about how I would be perceived driving it? You know what I'm saying? I think of a couple friends of mine. I have a friend of mine that we used to, we adored hanging out with them when we were in California. He went and bought a Corvette. And just because he really thought Corvettes were really, really cool. And he'd always wanted one since he was a kid. And he came to the point where he could afford one. So he went and purchased, I think it was a used one. It wasn't a brand new one. And I remember him commenting in the same way, that he didn't realize that people would be so drawn to that vehicle. Everywhere he went, they were constantly complimenting him on how beautiful the car was, and he was thinking to himself, I just bought it because I knew it would be fun to drive. We have to think sometimes about how the world perceives those of us that maybe are blessed. Because oftentimes, what we think is just a fun acquisition is seen as something else by others that maybe are more needy. Maybe like an extravagance. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know how to describe this effectively, other than to say that it seemed embarrassing to me to be driving that expensive a car when I would come across individuals in my own church that I knew were in need. And I thought to myself, I don't think I'm ever going to buy another car like this again, because it just doesn't seem appropriate. It doesn't match with who I am. You know what I'm saying? Not that there was anything wrong with the car, but the persona that it communicated wasn't a fit with who I feel like I am. Does that make sense? So we need to sometimes think about the way in which we portray our spending, our acquisitions. Are the things around us that we own, are they a witness to Jesus? That's the bottom line. Yeah.
I think that it's really hard sometimes to find out, whether somebody is in need or not. You really have to know them pretty well.
Yeah.
It's not, it's uncomfortable to admit your needs to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hide and we put on a good face. When 20 years ago or more with Pathfinders, we used to go out and collect canned goods and make Thanksgiving baskets. And it was really hard to find people to give them to. You had to go to the government agencies and get names from them. I mean, it's just not very easy to figure out who's really in need unless you find a homeless person or something.
Right.
But it was uncomfortable for me as a Pathfinder leader trying to arrange, this experience for the Pathfinders to help the needy, because it was hard for me to find true needy people. And another thing is, people are so skeptical in this society. You go, oh, well, they're not really in need, they're just, putting their name here, putting their name there, I mean, trying to see what they can get from the system. There's a lot of skepticism too, so, but we're not responsible for, really for finding out is it a real need or a perceived need or whatever. I mean, we are to give and to help, and if they happen to be kind of scamming or whatever, that's really not our fault, and the Lord will hold them accountable, I guess.
Yeah.